Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do that a lot on the Foreign Relations Committee, and I appreciate, first of all, your leadership on focusing on budget reforms, and I appreciate the opening comments of Senator Whitehouse, who generally agrees that we need to figure out a way to reform the process. And I want to thank David Perdue, a new member of the Senate, for his efforts on both sides of the aisle to try to create a process that works, and then say that I lobbied to be on this committee. And after being on it, I have to say our budget process is the biggest hoax cast upon the American people in Congress that I've ever been a part of. And to vote for a budget challenges one's integrity and certainly one's intellect. The fact is we say grace over about 30%, 33% of the spending each year. We put in place assumptions that are never going to be reality and have no policies whatsoever to back them up. So I thank the chairman for his leadership in changing that, because again, it's a shame that the American people even believe there's a budget process that has something to do with fiscal discipline. As a matter of fact, because it's a political document, and when Republicans are in charge, we stress Republican priorities, and when Democrats are in charge, they stress Democratic priorities, we actually spend more. It actually causes us to spend more. So I want to thank all involved for the process. Let me just ask the panel, you know, right now the budget is a resolution. It's not a law. Not a law. So we're never forced to make the difficult decisions that need to be made, where both sides have to come together. Whoever's in charge just passes a budget with no real input from the other side. Would the three of you agree that we'd be much better off if the budget was an actual law that forced the two sides to have to get together and make difficult decisions about the future of our country?
Let me start by saying that I agree that if the budget had more teeth, it would be a better thing. My concern about making the budget resolution a law is that we already have enough trouble getting the House and the Senate to agree on a budget resolution. If we involve the President, it might just increase the chances that you would end up without a budget resolution.
Well, let me just, would it not make sense for everybody on the front end to agree to the tough decisions? There's no forcing mechanism right now, none. The fact is we spend money we don't have. Angus King and I had dinner once, and he was asking me if a tax decrease when you have a deficit is really a tax decrease. It's really not. It's a tax increase on future generations. So, in essence, there's no forcing mechanism to force the two sides into making tough decisions. And so, as long as it's a resolution, it has no real impact. We have budget waivers. What is the forcing mechanism? What is the forcing mechanism around here to force Congress to deal with the fact that when this meeting ends, our nation is going to be less well off than it was? It's going to be a weaker nation because we do not have the forcing mechanism, or maybe it's courage, to actually address the issues that we need to address. Name a forcing mechanism.
Well, reconciliation in some ways is the forcing mechanism. It's a very, very, very bad one, an imperfect one. But I think, you know, the problem, if you make it a forcing mechanism, is it's then going to be a law that'll have to go to the President, and that can be vetoed, and you're going to have some difficulties. And what I would suggest, Senator Corker, is really go back and think about the pay-as-you-go mechanism that we had in the 90s. Study it and look at it, because that was a forcing mechanism. And it was, if you want to increase spending in one area, you're going to have to find an offset. Now, it was taken out because the offset included the ability to increase revenues to make that offset and not just cut spending in another area. But the fact is, it brought forcing discipline to the process.
Well,
so there's a way to do it, and not necessarily with a budget resolution.
Well, first of all, thank you, and I appreciate your many contributions in so many areas and the way you've worked with our office. Let's talk about pay-go. So you spend money for 1 year on something, and you pay for it over 10. Now, is that rational? That's the way pay-go works. It's a hoax. I mean, we should be ashamed that the way we deal with Americans' money. But let's go back again, PAYGO. Is that a sane process where we're going to spend $10 billion this year, but we'll pay for it over 10? By the way, with a bunch of gimmicks. But is paying for money you spend in 1 year over 10 a sane way of doing business?
I'm very happy to cut a deal where you pay for it the same year that you.
I couldn't agree more.
And that would be just fine. So it was imperfect the way it was done, but it did bring discipline.
My time is up. I appreciate the